Hi, you guys. We are live this morning on Facebook. Um, let's see. If you don't know me, my name is Allison Dillard. I am a math professor and author, and I guess I should tell you registration for my Raise a Math Person membership actually ends tonight, Friday, July 10th at 11:59 p.m. I've actually added three bonuses to that, so along with a membership, you actually get all three of my upcoming courses for free. Bonus number one is Homeschooled Made Easy-ish being key. It's a quick start guide for parents whose worst nightmare is homeschooling. Bonus number two is Crush Mom Burnout, because mom's self-care is like the number one most important thing to tackle before leading your family into the 2020 school year. And that provides 6 simple steps to sort of get yourself back to being fully recharged. And then bonus number three is DIY Do-It-Yourself Math Foundations, which is a step-by-step guide to helping your child strengthen their math foundations over summer in just 10 minutes a day. So you can register for that today at AllisonLovesMath.com. Registration actually closes tonight at midnight. And you guys, I am so excited. I'm so excited to welcome Emily Earhart from Pie Dreams to teach us how to how to bake brownies today. So I actually grew up with Emily, and she's hands down one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Just honestly, Emily, just being around you just makes me happier and more positive. And I think that's true with everybody. So I'm so excited for everybody to get to listen to you today. Um,
Allison, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and be on your show.
yeah, I know. I'm so excited too. Let me give everybody a little bit of like your background. Does that sound good before we jump in?
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, well, first, Emily and I both went to Sacred Heart Academy together, which is an incredible school if you want your kids to be rock stars at math. But Emily did not, like me, go on to major in math. She's actually a former pastry chef and food educator with a master's in food anthropology at the University of London and a baking diploma from Le Cordon Bleu. So she's been teaching hands-on cooking and baking classes to all ages for over 10 years. And you can follow her baking adventures in her tiny house kitchen on her YouTube channel, Pie Dreams, or you can follow her on Instagram at Pie Dreams by Emily. And Emily, I love your YouTube videos so much, your baking videos. They're so much fun.
Thanks so much, Allison. They're fun to make.
Cool. So, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. I'm great. Waking up with some delicious tea. Was got to start the day with a little caffeine.
Cool. Cheers.
Anytime I make something chocolate in it, I'm always super excited. So
Nice, nice.
I'll be baking brownies today with you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for waking up early to bake brownies. I know it's not something we usually do at like 7 o'clock in the morning, but it's the easiest time for me to bake videos on a Facebook Live is before the kids wake up. Otherwise, they'd be crawling all over me. I'm trying to think. Before we get started, so how did you get into baking? Did you study that in undergrad also?
Well, no, actually, I entered baking via anthropology. So I studied anthropology as my bachelor's degree, and my senior year in college, I started working at a restaurant and just absolutely fell in love with how food brought people together. And decided I ended up writing my senior thesis, my anthropology thesis on the restaurant I was working at and on food, and decided I wanted to pursue that, excuse me. So after college, I enrolled in culinary school and worked in the hospitality industry for several years before ending up going back to grad school and studying food anthropology, which kind of like brought the two together.
Oh my God, that is so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was great. Bringing together understanding culture and history and how food has changed throughout the years was just really, I love to infuse that in my baking and my cooking classes as well.
Yes, and it totally like infuses like your two things that you love, you know? I don't know. I,
Mm-hmm.
I like how it just sort of draws everything together.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah.
All right, so I know for you we're doing some simple baking today, but walk us through, maybe give us an overview. How do we make brownies?
Yeah, so brownies are a really great entry point into baking with kids. It's a really simple, straightforward one bowl recipe with not a whole ton of ingredients. So, what you need today to make this recipe is chocolate chips, brown sugar, granulated sugar, 2 eggs, flour, vanilla, salt, and butter, and that's it.
Awesome.
Which is great because most of us tend to have those ingredients on hand.
Yes,
Um,
it's stuff that we've already got in the kitchen, which is nice. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also a really easy step-by-step directions that you don't need a ton of extra special equipment for. So we're just going to be mixing up our ingredients in one bowl, basically. We're going to measure, mix, pour it into a pan, and bake. So very straightforward, very kid-friendly.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Cool. So what do we start with?
All right, let's dive in, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to start by melting our butter and our chocolate together. So we're going to start with 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, which is the equivalent of a half a stick of butter, 1 stick of butter or a half a cup. And this is a great opportunity to talk about measurement conversions with kids as well.
Yes. Yes. I think that's like one of the best things about cooking or about kitchen math, how we titled it, right? Is that all of the different conversions that you get to do is all, it's fun to do that with kids in a way that is fun that you use in everyday life. And I think that it adds a little more meaning, right, to the worksheets that they do in class than if they've actually seen how you use it in real life.
Yeah, it's very much like a life skill, and you see it like in action. You see the math in action, which is fun. So you can tell your kids there's 16 tablespoons in a cup, and we need a half a cup of butter. How many tablespoons is that? That's 8 tablespoons. So it's great. So we're going to start with our butter in a stainless steel bowl. And I'm going to weigh out my chocolate, which is 4 ounces, or if you don't have a scale, it's roughly 2/3 cup. Again, another conversion opportunity. And I think the key to any good brownies is using really good quality chocolate. So I like to use dark chocolate from Guittard, which is a California company. Been around for a really long time, one of the older chocolate companies in this country. And I'm going to measure out my chocolate chips. I always save a few. This is always fun to save a few and munch on for the kids at this point, even if it's 7 a.m. And then I'm going to put this on top of a recently boiled pan of water. I'm going to bring my pan of water up to a boil and then turn it off because chocolate's very sensitive temperature-wise to heat, and we don't want to burn it. So I turn off my boiling pan and I set that on. I just let it sit. And again, this is a great entry point for chemistry. You can talk about the melting point of butter, the melting point of chocolate. You can talk about temperature and chemistry at that point as well.
Right, right. That's cool. And so you were saying it was 4 ounces is approximately 2/3 of a cup for the little chocolate chips?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say again another entry point to talk about the difference between weight and volume.
Mm-hmm.
Because things of don't all that things that weight is more of like a universal measurement than volume is. Volume's not quite as precise, and things vary by volume as well. Like you could say a cup of feathers is not going to weigh the same as a cup of rice, right? So
right. Yeah. So actually, I can.
Go ahead.
I can totally chime in on that on the math side, right? Is that like when we're doing conversions, right? Is you want to compare, volumes to volumes, right? Those are the set conversions that you can always do. Likewise, you can convert a weight to a different unit of weight. But when we're doing the volume to weight conversion, right? Like you were just saying, that really varies a lot, right? Because 1 cup of chocolates, right, is going to weigh a different amount than 1 cup of feathers, right? So those conversions are going to actually vary according to whatever is actually in the cup, right? Mm-hmm. And so that sort of 4 ounces to 2/3 of a cup is specific to chocolate, right? That's not universal. It's not going to be the same thing for feathers. So I don't know. I always think that is interesting, right? Because we do so much between like ounces, but fluid ounces, but they're actually 2 different things, right? One is volume and one is weight.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the baking and cooking world, recipes tend to be by weight because it is like the most accurate and you can get it down to like the exact It's a lot more precise, but you don't always have a scale in your home kitchen. As you'll see, as we start measuring out our ingredients now, it's really important when you do measure things out by volume that you always measure them out levelly with your measuring cups. So let's dive into that too. We're going to measure up a half a cup of flour and half a cup of granulated sugar into a bowl. Now, here's a funny thing. Obviously, I have a half a cup, but my half a cup measure doesn't fit through the mouth of my mason jars where I store my ingredients, which is a nice challenge.
Yes.
And
oh no, what would you do in that situation? You would have to know math.
I have to do math, right? So I take my quarter cup and I measure it out twice. And so this is why I love baking. It's all about challenges, much like math and solving problems, It's all about solving problems.
Yes, and I love that too, because especially if your kids are struggling with fractions, right? And they're just sort of like, well, I don't get how 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2, right? And it's just sometimes on the worksheets, it's just honestly, they can't even focus on it because they might just find it boring and not related to real life. But when you see exactly what Emily's doing right now, and you see, okay, well, that's a quarter cup, and she pours it into there, and we've got the another one, and you see that it's the same thing as a half cup, and you could actually pour the quarter cup even straight into the half cup, right, and see that it totally fills up the half cup, and so it's fun because it's like it almost doesn't even seem like math, and it shows them just how simple some of these concepts are, that they're possibly making very complex, right? They think that it's a lot harder than it is, but when they can just see it in terms of like cups of sugar, a lot of times things just sort of click. And then those worksheets become easier, right? That they're doing in class, because then they can just think of it in terms of like cups of flour and cups of sugar.
Yeah, it just visualizes it really well. Like what you said, like to actually pour the quarter cup into the half a cup so they can see that it only goes up halfway, I think it's just a great, like, it visually just makes it like click,
Yeah,
that's great.
Ooh, and another fun one for the half cup that I run into is that for some reason we lost our half cups in our kitchen. I think, every once in a while the kids like sneak stuff to go put in like the play kitchen, or maybe I feel like maybe they took it outside to like use it as a shovel or something, and it's like buried under the grass somewhere. But we've lost our little half measuring cups, and so we do everything in thirds, which actually ends up being very fun because then we get to do fraction conversions, which honestly, when we're doing it in terms of cups, is very fun, more so than the school worksheets. And I think, we've even covered it sometimes before. Like, I'm trying to think if Abby's really covered that much in fractions. I don't think she's covered fraction conversions yet, But when you're just doing it in the kitchen, it doesn't matter if you've covered it in school or not. It's still just a fun thing to do.
Yeah. So we'll run into the same kind of issues and fun math opportunity. We pull out our measuring teaspoons.
Mm-hmm.
So for this recipe, we're going to take a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. But the fun thing to always remember, in order to maximize the teachable moments, is that there are always 3 teaspoons in 1 tablespoon. So if you're like scaling up or down a recipe, you have like 1 tablespoon and you're going to divide it like in half. What's half a tablespoon, right? Nobody typically has like a half tablespoon measurement.
Yeah.
So what of 3 teaspoons, 1.5 teaspoons. So,
Perfect.
There's other fun kind of teachable math moments.
Yes. Yes, and I love finding like the formula for something like that, right? If it's 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, then really the formula is taking multiplying by 3, right? Or dividing by 3, depending on which way that you're going,
Right. Yeah. Which is really fun when it's like converting it into fractions and stuff like.
Yes. And that makes it fun too, because then it's like if you want to double the recipe or quadruple the recipe, or, you can, I don't know, be weird and challenge your kids and say, I want to make it like 9/10 the size of the recipe. What would you do? But you could totally do all of that stuff just by finding a little formula for the conversions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've got all my dry ingredients, my flour and my sugar and salt in a bowl and mixed together, and I'm going to set it aside. And now I'm going to grab my melted chocolate and butter.
Perfect. Cool.
So let's see if you can see the chocolate butter's gotten all like super melty.
Yum.
And so I'm going to take a whisk and I'm going to just gently whisk it together to combine until it's like nice and smooth and glossy and all the butter and the chocolate is fully melted and combined together.
Yum. I love it. I'm getting hungry. I think I'm going to have to go make brownies for breakfast after this.
Right. Brownies for breakfast. Yay!
I know. The kids are going to be like, this is awesome. You have to have Emily on every day.
So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to measure out brown sugar. And brown sugar is one of those really fun things to measure out because you're doing it, again, by volume rather than weight. It's not as straightforward as you might think because it's the one thing that you don't, unlike other dry ingredients that you measure by volume, you don't just scoop and level off. You pack it lightly.
Okay.
It's just... you get more of an accurate measure that way. And that's why if you're measuring brown sugar by volume, it's important to pack it.
Awesome.
I remember as a kid, this was one of my most favorite tasks to do with my mom is to pack the brown sugar. And so usually I take like the back of a spoon and pack it down into the cup until it got level. Now my trick is I just use the palm of my hand over the over the sugar bowl. And it works pretty good too.
Oh, nice.
But
see, little cooking tips.
Fun kind of.
I didn't know this. I didn't know you're supposed to pack it. It's good to know.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be crazy, like tightly packed, just like loosely packed. You can see it's all like leveled off now. So again, we're doing half a cup. So with my 2 quarter cups, I'm going to do it twice. And it's a nice, I think the reason why kids love baking so much. Hey, Matthew.
Hi. We're up early. Usually I get through 7:30 without, you were up early this morning. All right.
We're making brownies. Your mom said she's going to make you brownies for breakfast. How does that sound?
Good.
All right. So
you packed the second one?
Going back to the brown sugars, I was just saying that it's why kids love baking so much is it's so hands-on and what's the word? Tactile. There we go. I like your pajamas, Matt.
Thank you.
Do you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
No.
Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
No favorite Ninja Turtle? No.
Okay.
All right, so what are we doing next?
We got our brown sugar in with our chocolate, and we're going to whisk it. And then we're going to take our 2 eggs, and we're going to add them one by one. And we're going to whisk in between each addition of the eggs just to fully incorporate it. Again, cracking eggs is a great tactile thing for kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, while I'm whisking, maybe Allie, you want to talk about pan sizes because this is another fun way to incorporate math. So for this recipe, I'm using a 9x9. Or excuse me, an 8x8 inch pan. But the recipe easily, if you double it, can go up to a 13x9 pan. If you got also more kids and need more brownies. So another math moment.
Yes, I love that because you can totally pull math into that as well, right? If we're looking for those different opportunities to teach the kids math, I think the pan is a good one, right? Because normally we might just say to ourselves, oh, we'll use the bigger pan, right? But you can take it as an opportunity, right, to sort of teach them about volume, right? You can sort of calculate the volume of the 8x8 pan, and so it's 8x8, but then I don't know, you can estimate how tall it is, right? Maybe 1 inch or 2 inches. And then if you're doing like a 9x13 pan, right, then you can calculate the volume for that also and see is it double or is it close to double? So we can see whether or not the next pan will be big enough. So that can be sort of a fun little, I don't know, exercise, right, to do with the kids is to say, let's use some math to figure out which of the pans we should use, right, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, let's grab the bigger one.
Right. Yeah. And one of the quickest and easiest and like least wasteful way to figure out what the volume capacity of a pan is just to measure out water and fill up the pan with water, and that'll tell you what the volume capacity is, and that makes it easy to compare.
Compare the two. Perfect. So what you would do is if you're doubling it, right, you would just pour the water into the 8x8 pan twice and then putting it into the bigger pan to see if it fits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great idea. I love that. I love it because that really like that you could almost do both of it, right? One to actually see the volume as the water, and then one to also do the calculations to see how much bigger it is in ounces. Oh, I love that so much. That's so much fun.
Awesome. So we've added our eggs, and it's all fully mixed up together.
Yeah.
And then I actually ran out of vanilla this morning, but at this point you would add a teaspoon of vanilla as well. And then our final step is we're gonna mix in our dry ingredients that we measured out earlier. And at this point, we're going to get rid of our whisk because the whisk incorporates lots of air. And we don't want to do that at this point. We're wanting to switch to a spatula and just fold in our dry ingredients. And I mean, again, this is for maybe older kids. You can talk about chemistry and gluten. You can talk about the different kind of, what is flour. Another thing I love to use baking as a teachable moment about raw ingredients. Where do our ingredients come from? Are they plants or are they from animals? The journey, how are they produced, and where do they come from geographically, or even the history of it? Especially chocolate has such a fun history. It's great to talk about the history of from South America. So lots of fun, different things based on your the age of your kids, way to incorporate into baking.
Yes, there's so many different things, and especially like your background, right, being so different. Like there are just so many different things that you can pull in to learn from the baking. And really, as you were talking about all of that, one of the things that I was thinking of, especially when you're talking about like not using the whisk and stuff, I was thinking, gosh, I'm learning. Brownies are so simple, but I'm learning a lot because I don't bake a lot, but it just reminds me of the fact that, baking is a skill, right? And the more that you do it, the more you like watch the videos and try things out and learn, the better you get at it. Totally in the same way that you improve with math, right? Math is just a skill. And the more that you do these fun little activities with your kid, the more that you just sort of integrate math into like everyday life, the better that they get at it and the less scared they get at it, and the more they see it as something that they use every day, rather than just this sort of, scary subject at school.
Yeah, exactly. Baking is just like math. It's solving problems, and as you solve problems, you are further developing your skill.
Exactly. So yeah, sorry, I totally interrupted. What are you doing next?
No, we're good. So all the flour's been incorporated. So now I'm going to use my spatula to scrape the batter into the prepared pan. I've lined my pan with parchment paper. You can also use foil. And by doing it in such a way that the paper or foil kind of goes over the edges a little bit, it makes it so that it's really easy to take it out once it's done baking.
Nice.
And we don't have to butter it because there's so much butter in the batter that it's going to be well oiled and won't stick.
Ooh, I do have a tip on baking.
It's always tricky to do it backwards.
Oh yes, that's right. I do have a fun tip on baking brownies that I learned from experience back in high school. You might laugh at this. It is that make sure that you don't go outside and swim after you set the timer to put the brownies in the oven. Because you won't hear the timer go off and you'll totally forget about it. And your mom will come home to a house filled with smoke and totally freak out.
I actually almost had an experience like that last night when I made the brownies to show for today. I went outside and totally forgot and didn't hear the timer go off. I always use my nose to like, oh, they're ready. So use your spatula to just spread the batter. This is a fun thing for kids to do is to level out and even out the batter. You want it to be even so that it'll bake evenly.
Ooh, it looks so good. Oh man, I wasn't paying attention. Hi friends, if you're joining us live, say hi in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. All right.
Hopefully there's a bunch of Kellogg's out there.
It'll be fun. All right, cool. So where are we at now? Oh, it looks
So
good.
brownies are a great canvas. You can add in walnuts or, chocolate chips, cocoa nibs, a whole bunch of different, it's just a blank canvas. Brownies are really adding whatever kind of flavors you want. So if you wanted to, you could add them right at the very end before we put it in the pan, or you could sprinkle stuff on top as well.
Very cool.
Our brownies, once they're ready to bake, go in a 350-degree oven. In this pan, it'll be for 20 to 30 minutes. If you're doing it doubling the recipe and doing it in the larger 9x13 pan, it'll be closer to 40 minutes. But basically, you're going to bake it until they're puffy, they're starting to smell delicious, and maybe just starting to pull away from the edge a little bit. The thing with brownies is if you underdo them a little bit, it's totally fine because there's carryover baking when it comes out of the oven, and it's going to just be really nice and super fudgy. If it's a little underdone, it's okay. But it's always going to have a little bit of carryover baking when you bring it out of the oven. So just keep that in mind. And here we go. I baked some brownies last night, so you can see what the brownies look like when they're done. Nice and fudgy.
They look so good.
Delicious.
Oh, Christy just chimed in. Christy says, the brownies look amazing. And Jamie says hi.
Christy.
Jamie and Jacob also say hi. They're watching your brownie video also.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Cool. Well, they look so good, and that's so much fun. I actually had one other thought on baking, which is that, a lot of times, so often moms say like, oh, I don't use math with baking, right? I just estimate, and I just sort of like eyeball stuff when I'm doing it. But always remember that when you're doing that, that's math too, right? Your ability to just sort of estimate how much things are, all of that comes from math, so make sure, right, when you're teaching your kids how to just sort of estimate for recipes, tell them that like you've got to learn these conversions in math and how to do all of these different fractions and stuff, because when you learn that and you have those foundations, all of the estimating, gets a lot easier.
And sometimes for fun, because I do that as well. I estimate things just because I'm so used to, like I have an internal sense, like you're saying, of what something weighs or it, measures. And sometimes just for fun, I'll test myself. Like I'll say, oh, I just need a cupful of this. I'm like, oh, or a handful of this. And then, oh, that looks like a cup. And I'll put it in and I'm like, oh my gosh, it is a cup. Like you just like, by measuring earlier on, you instill this kind of internal math sense, It's great.
Perfect, cool. Oh my gosh, and it is 7:28 already. I can't believe that flew by so fast. Well, yay, we got through it, and we got through to the end. You also have a whole bunch of, you've got some awesome videos on YouTube, right? With other recipes and stuff. Can you tell people like where they can find you and find those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a YouTube channel. If you search YouTube for Pie Dreams, or you can follow me on Instagram, Pie Dreams by Emily. Obviously, I'm a pieaholic, so my focus is pies, but I cover all things baking and sweet on both those platforms.
Awesome. I love them. I love watching your videos on there. So yeah, definitely you can follow Emily there. And yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Christy, for joining us live. And if you're catching the replay on this, say hi in the comments also, because we'll see those even if you're watching it after the fact. So have a great morning and go bake your brownies for breakfast and have a fun breakfast.
For breakfast.
Yes.
Brownies for breakfast. Thanks, Allison,
all
for
right.
having me. This was so much fun.
Thanks so much, Emily. Bye, everyone.
Bye.